Hello and welcome to Math and Politics episode 2. So here we're going to continue talking about different types of voting methods. We're going to look at a specific type of voting method called the plurality method, and we're going to talk about which of the 5 fairness criteria it meets. So let's first jump into what is the plurality method at all. I'd like to make a clarification because plurality and majority are often confused with each other. The majority means something very specific. It means that someone has more than half of the votes, so more than 50% of the votes. The plurality is related, so math vocab. Plurality means you have the most number of first place votes. Think plural when you think plurality, right? So more than one, lots of votes. But it doesn't mean that you have the majority. It doesn't mean that you have more than half. So it's a distinction that does come into play. If you have the most number of first place votes, it does not mean you have a majority. Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. So let's consider here, we have a preference ballot situation. I have a scenario here on the screen, and we're going to look at how do we count votes? How do we determine a winner for the plurality method? We're not going to do the majority method because usually when you have more than 2 candidates, you can't get a majority. It's so difficult to get that. It occasionally does happen, yes, but it's really difficult to achieve. So usually when you have more than 3 candidates, you might have someone who's got like 40% of the votes and then another 2 candidates who have 30% each, right? No one's got more than half. And in that situation, you would actually declare no winner if you were seeking a majority. And that's not really useful for us. We want a decisive system that consistently picks a winner, and so we will work with the plurality method instead. So here I have this scenario. It's Gotham City, and the mayor is stepping down. So we are running an election for a new mayor. Let's say that Alfred, Batman, and Catwoman are all going to throw their hat into the ring, so to speak. So they are campaigning to win the mayor position of Gotham City. They do the votes, and here is the preference ballot. So 30 people listed CBA, so Catwoman first place, Batman second place, Alfred third place. 31 people still preferred Catwoman, but Alfred and Batman were switched for them. So Alfred was their second choice and Batman their last choice. 65 people preferred Alfred and then Catwoman and then Batman. And only 21 people liked Batman best. So 21 people chose Batman first, Catwoman second, and Alfred last. So we're looking at this. We have 30 plus 31. That's 61 votes for Catwoman in first place and 65 votes for Alfred in first place. Neither of them have a majority. 65 is about 45% of the votes. So neither of them have more than half. But Alfred is winning. Batman, poor guy, he's just hanging out in last place. So the plurality method would say Alfred has the most number of first place votes, so Alfred wins the election. Let's go ahead and look now at the fairness criteria and see if we're violating any of those criteria. So there are 5 that we covered in the episode 1. I'm going to remind you of them now. The first is this head-to-head idea. This is formally known as the Condorcet criterion after some French guy who did a lot of stuff, and it was really cool. But paraphrased as the head-to-head criteria for my video here. What we're looking at here is if any candidate would win in a head-to-head election against everyone else, they should win the whole thing under whatever method we're chose, and we are doing the plurality method today. The second criteria is that if anyone gets the majority, more than 50% of the votes, then they would win. Seems fair. The third criteria is this more is more idea. So if the voting changes a little bit, maybe a candidate drops out, there's some other things happening, and someone gets a little bit more support and nothing else changes, and they were already winning, they should still win. The fourth one is this idea of dropouts. So this is going to be a great scenario for us because in our situation here, Batman had only 21 votes. He is dead last, right? So this idea that, as often happens, when a candidate is losing, they drop out of the race, whoever was winning before should still be winning. That's fair. And then the last, which is usually pretty easy to meet, is this dictator quality, which is that a single person cannot determine the whole results of the election. And that's usually pretty easy to meet. The two criteria that the plurality method can violate are the head-to-head and the dropout conditions. So let's look at the dropout condition first because it's a little bit easier to assess. Here, as I just said, Batman's dead last. He's not having a good time campaigning anyway. He's got crime fighting to do, so he decides to drop out of the race. When we eliminate him from the table here, the 21 votes that had him as first place, those 21 votes now we look at their second place choice, and that becomes their new first place, right? So I'm looking at their second place choice, that's Catwoman. So she would win now because she was neck and neck with Alfred already, 61 to 65. With an extra 21 votes, she easily wins the election. So this system has violated this principle because it's not really fair that Alfred is benefiting from these kind of stolen votes that the Batman had. And so it's not fair. Really, Catwoman should have been the winner because those votes were kind of being stolen from her, if that makes sense. So this dropout effect has been violated by our scenario here. The next is this head-to-head idea. So we will compare all of the three people against each other one-on-one and see who's winning in the head-to-head elections. So first we'll look at Alfred versus Batman. Alfred is higher than Batman in two of the columns, the second and the third. So 31 plus 65 votes, that brings him up to 96, which is more than the 51 people who prefer Batman. So he would handily win in a head-to-head against Batman. Now we'll compare Alfred versus Catwoman. He is preferred by only those 65 people who put him in first place. So they're neck and neck. Only 65 people actually prefer him to Catwoman. And those 21 votes, when we look at the 21 votes for Batman, when we look at the head-to-head, those all go to Catwoman. She handily wins a head-to-head against Alfred. And then if we compare Batman to Catwoman, well, again, he's not very popular in the polls. Maybe his speeches are really short. And so he is not winning at all against either Alfred or Catwoman. So he would lose against that as well. So here we have another violation. Again, the original system that we just talked about, the plurality, Alfred wins. But Catwoman wins the head-to-head against both other candidates. So it's not really fair that Alfred should win. It's more fair that she should be the winner. So one way to kind of address this is what's called plurality with elimination. And so what during the counting of the voting, the people doing the counting will actually account for this. So first they will do all the counting, and then they will eliminate the candidate with the least number of first place votes, and then kind of recount. And that is plurality with elimination, which is what we will be discussing in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.